What is it like to be the most censored man in Scotland? Well, there's one person that knows the answer to that. His name is Neil Oliver, archaeologist, historian, one of the true amazing truth tellers in Scotland, someone who has been censored more than just about anyone else. And I think when you look at the United Kingdom overall, it really is the epicenter for the censorship industrial complex. And I'm lucky enough to be sitting here today with the great Neil Oliver, really a truth teller in Scotland. Great to see you, Neil.
It's lovely to have you here, Clayton, not least because, if any conversations we've had in the past are remote,
right
down the line, and I cherish the opportunities like this one to actually be in the same room, to have you here, because it does make all the difference.
Sure.
No matter how wonderful the technology is in enabling us to interact across the thousands of miles, it's lovely to be face-to-face with someone and get a real sense of what another human being is all about.
Well, it's been amazing to get to know you over the past few years, and I think you've had maybe a similar journey to one that I've had, an awakening, if you will. But it's come at a great expense, hasn't it, this awakening?
Well, yes, it has. I'm definitely perceived altogether differently now than I would have been seen 5 years ago. I freely admit that before the COVID debacle, I was pretty much resident in the belly of the beast to some extent. I was sort of minor establishment. I had made most of my television over the years, sort of history and landscape documentary television for the BBC. Well, not exclusively, but the vast majority of it I had made for the BBC. I have been, president of the Scottish Tour Guides Association, president of the National Trust for Scotland. I had a column in a Sunday broadsheet. I was a patron of charities. I was invited to BAFTAs to hand out gongs. So I was very much perceived in that way. And by now I'm not any of that. And it's been the consequence directly and indirectly of things that I've said, and I suppose positions that I have taken and upheld over the last 4 or 5 years, ever since lockdowns and so on started. Like a lot of people, I was initially trustful. I came from a position of trust. I trusted the government. I didn't necessarily, I might not support it, but I felt that regardless of the political ideology, they were essentially there to look after the well-being of myself and my family. And so when they said lockdown, a lockdown for the first few weeks, and when they said, that this was a very dangerous disease that had come out of the East, and I trusted that they must know what they were talking about. But quite rapidly, within a few weeks, I decided that wasn't the case. And I started to say things, and I started to speak out. And without having weighed up the consequences in advance, everything else happened. And like a lot of people, I find myself shut down. I lost a lot of access to, the way in which in the past, as a self-employed person, I had made a living in the past was all shut off to me. But that's my reality. I don't regret any of it. I don't really feel that I moved. I feel as if the world moved away from me. But I definitely have been subject to censorship right up until this day, included, content that I put out on social media and on the various platforms where you can have content hosted. I'm definitely suppressed and shut down and maybe more than most.
Yeah.
But I would leave that for others to judge.
I'll judge it. I think, that's absolutely the case. I think when I said at the beginning, I think you're maybe the most censored man in Scotland is probably right. Do you think that censorship is coming from the government, from the Scottish government, from?
I've reached a point where I don't take the government seriously. I take the figures that we can see that were offered as, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, First Minister in Scotland, the senior figures in the political parties, the senior figures that were entitled to listen to and to see. By definition, I take those people as being essentially just factotums. Just puppets. They're just mouthing words that are scripted for them elsewhere, and I think they're just the active components of projects that are being prosecuted at the behest of much larger entities. The United Nations, the World Economic Forum, globalism in all its manifestations. So is the censorship coming from government? I think there is a pan-European, pan-Western civilization determination to close down dissent. I think I take some bleak, almost encouragement from it, in a way, in a perverse way, because I think
It's very Scottish of you, yeah.
the determination to censor now, to me, is symptomatic of the authorities having completely lost the argument. They can't debate anymore.
Right.
They're no longer coming from a credible position,
Right.
where they can stand up and confidently and truthfully make their case and realistically expect to have it accepted. They've lost the arguments. They lost the argument over COVID. They lost the argument over lockdown. I think the general public perception of, the war in Ukraine, the atrocities in Gaza, the climate crisis hoax, the push for Agenda 2030 that increasing numbers of people see for what it is, which is just totalitarianism. It's just the advent of the digital cage, the surveillance state, and all of the rest of it. And because they can no longer make a legitimate argument, all they have left is to shut down dissent. But now they would like to treat us like children. Exasperated parents, as it were, who, everyone experiences that point where your child says something to you and you think, they've got me. I'm banged to rights. That's logic. They have actually got the better of me here. But so often that, as parents, you go, look, just listen to me.
Right.
I'm not going to hear any more about it. It's, I'm the adult. Do as you're told. I think that at the very least, that's the exasperated point they've got to. They can no longer make the case. So all that's left to them is to shut down dissent. And I don't think it's working, because a lot of us are in this space of trying to give the counter argument. It's become so nuanced. We watch one another. A lot of us have kind of got each other's backs. We watch each other's figures. When it comes to views for content that people are putting up, we can all analyse it in quite sophisticated ways now. After years of watching, we can see that's being crushed. That's not a realistic representation of the appetite for that point of view. That's being pushed to the sides by the algorithms and all of the rest of it. And I do think, although these are simultaneously very dispiriting, exhausting, frustrating times in which to live, I think one has to take time every now and again to draw breath and think, yes, but it's because we're winning. Mm-hmm. It's an attritional war, and the odds might be against us at the moment. But I think the extremes of the censorship and the determination to silence alternative voices has to be a sign that it's because our argument is the truth.
No, I think you're right. I think by us winning, you winning, telling the truth, you're seeing it in the people. You and I were out the other day, and I can tell our audience, just in public here in Scotland, people will come up to you and say, "Thank you, Neil. Thank you for telling the truth." But you don't see, if it's social media suppresses that, hides that. But your voice, the message you're telling the truth, is resonating. It's been resonating all around the United Kingdom. I mean, and I see that in the faces of people that would come up to you.
People go out of their way. I've talked often about the letters that I get that come, it's not my address. Things come to me, Neil Oliver in Stirling, Neil Oliver Scotland, and so on, and the letters come to me. And
by the way, that's a remarkable testament to your postal service that you could just send a letter to Scotland and it somehow arrives to you.
I got a letter not too long ago it came addressed to the Coast Guard, and it had a stamp on the envelope, and that's all it had on it, and it came to me.
And that's your social media handle, the Coast Guy.
And so absolutely it's a testament to the tried and trusted, the Royal Mail, that there's still a backbone of reliability there, 100%. And we're on very good terms with our posties who come and deliver the mail. But it takes effort. People take the time to write a letter. Not a post, not an email. People take pen and paper and they sit down at a table somewhere and they compose thoughts, pages often, 10 pages of handwriting, and then, put it in an envelope. Come up with your best attempt at an address if you don't know the address. Go to the post office, get a stamp, and send it on its way, times thousands. Also, it also takes an effort to approach a stranger in the street. And to engage them, and to introduce yourself, and to make your feelings plain. And each one of those interactions that I have, every letter and every encounter in the street, I allow for the 1,000 or the 10,000 that are out there that are feeling the same way. And the strength of the emotion. Over the years, times without number, I've had guys pull up in their white vans, or guys park up motorbikes, and big blokes come and embrace me, give me a hug, shake my hand. Keep going, doing that. And I know that it's not about me. I know that I'm just channeling them.
Right.
The things that I say resonate. It's not because I've thought them up. I'm not coming up with great pearls of wisdom. I'm saying what people know, and that's what resonates. And that's also what's meaningfully humbling, because I know that I'm not telling people things that they don't know. It resonates with people because they're hearing me say what they know. And it is the truth. And people have a physiological response to the truth. You can feel it.
Right.
It's what makes you laugh at a really good joke. It's a quip that someone comes away with around a dinner table that they say almost without having to rehearse the line. It just comes out of them because it's the truth. It almost comes from elsewhere and comes out of you. And people respond to it. And that's why, in amongst all of the censorship and all of the negative aspects to it, it's been revelatory to me to be having this sort of relationship with the people that I'm connecting with, because I know that I'm just like them, and it's just by whatever coincidence or happenstance or a set of circumstances that I find myself being the person who's saying it. But these are not my words. I'm just saying what people know, and people need to hear it. But you must get it too. You're coming. You're resident in the States again after your sojourn in Portugal. It must be the same, at least for you. Your audience is far larger. You reach, and the background, the journalistic background that you've come from, in Fox and so on. You must be encountering the same thing. You must be sensing the same thing with me, that there's a zeitgeist. It's a suppressed zeitgeist, and it's a zeitgeist that maybe not uniquely, but unusual, I suppose, in the scheme of things, that the authorities at this point don't want rising and inflating the way that it is. But you must know it too, where you are.
And I see it in the people that we talk to on the streets that come up and say, while we're here in Scotland, there's been some amazing people that have come up and said, thank you, keep, doing what you're doing. And I always say thank you to them, because without them spreading the word, whether it's alternative media or otherwise, we would fail. And we're up against these behemoth tech organizations that don't want these messages out there. They certainly don't want what we say spread around. You can see it in the suppression of numbers across all sort of conservative alternative media. If you're CNN, you'll be amplified. If you're, big stations, you'll be amplified. But if you're alternative, you'll be squashed. So it is a collective. It's sort of a collective consciousness, I think, and I think it's underrepresented. Certainly, you saw that during the last election in the United States, where you saw certain poll numbers. You saw, it's 48% to 48%. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, 48%. But you just know, talking to people, that they are so fed up. They are so disgusted by the power structure. They're so disgusted by CNN or whatever telling you that it's 48%, that it's neck and neck. And then you have this massive election blowout. And I'm not saying everyone's in love with Donald Trump or anything, but we are sick and tired of the status quo. We are sick and tired of the power structures in Washington, the deep state or whatever it is that's running things. And we want to blow it up. I have to say, we're sat here very near Stirling Castle. For any of our audience has ever been to Scotland, it's such a beautiful place. Stirling Castle The Battle of Stirling Bridge has such an incredible history here. Famously, played in the movie Braveheart, William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, battling the English, outnumbered, outgunned, so to speak, crushing them at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. And famously, that Mel Gibson phrase from Braveheart, you'll never take away my freedoms. I've heard you repeatedly talk about freedoms being taken away, and it seems to me like this is the heart of it. Like right near Stirling Castle, this idea of freedom. Freedom from tyranny, freedom from censorship, freedom from the government telling me what to do. And yet I've heard you say that many of those freedoms have just been taken away.
It's been very alarming to watch because, as you say, Scots have these things tattooed on their bodies, about freedom. It's always been deeply, literally ingrained, this sense of right, the sense of freedom, the will of the people, the determination to stand in the face of the oppressor at whatever cost. And yet, as happened all over, when it came to COVID, for example, there was just a sudden rolling over in the face of it. And then I said at the beginning of this, that I was bowled over by the intensity of what we were being told as well. But I got back up again and thought, no, hold on, that can't be right. And then everything that's happened since then began to unfold for me. And it's worth paying attention to the fact that if a country and a population like Scotland that has told itself about freedom, and you may take our lives, but you'll never take our freedom, and that's stubborn opposition, even without number. If a moment comes when that's lost in a place like Scotland, it's very significant because it's iconic and it's associated with the identity. And I'm not claiming exceptionality for Scots and Scotland in that regard. Many places, many populations have, or parts of populations have proud histories similarly. But in Ireland, for example, which is very close to us geographically, and as Scots especially, we have a great deal in common with the Irish. There's been a great blending. People talk about the Celtic, the united by a common Celtic identity and so on. But likewise, it's almost terrifying to me to watch what's happening in Ireland right now, because Ireland, because it has fallen under the thrall, under the yoke so strongly of the EU, the European Union, and the unelected, unaccountable globalist ideologue bureaucrats there, that Ireland at the moment is in the midst of being flooded with deliberate immigration at a level that the country cannot cope with. I mean, they've agreed at the moment to take up to 24,000 new people a year. Now, the population of the Republic of Ireland is a small country in the world.
24,000
a year. Forever, and that number can go up at any point. And the people of Ireland don't have any control over it. That will be imposed on them from without. And it seems to me, I watched that, having grown up, I'm 58, and having grown up through the Troubles in Ireland, and having internalised, amongst other things, the determination of, say, the politics of Sinn Féin, we ourselves, that Ireland must be independent, that Ireland must determine its own fate for itself, by itself, and of itself. Whether you agreed with that or not, it was loud and clear. The Irish identity, the music, the culture, the language, everything about it is one of the most identifiable identities on the face of the earth.
Right.
I mean, name to me a more instantly something that you can stop someone anywhere and say, what are the Irish? What is Ireland?
Right.
And you'll get the stuff. Shamrock, Guinness, music, Blarney, the crack, all of the rest of it, all these things, cliched or not. And Ireland is just on its back at the moment. So you think, where is that? What's happened to that indigenous determination to be Irish, to be ourselves, to be yourselves?
And that's not wrong. Is it wrong?
It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all.
Is it wrong to feel that you want to preserve Scottish heritage?
And it seems to me that places, these small and instantly identifiable places, like Scotland, like Britain, frankly, another small place in the scheme of things. Ireland, you see in Canada, huge place, relatively small population. New Zealand, Australia, vast continent, but a relatively 25 million people or whatever it is. These places seem to me to have been singled out specifically because they're small. They've had a very clearly defined sense of themselves. They're synonymous with freedom. They're synonymous with a sense of self. And it seems to me that the globalists seem to be saying, if we can show the world that we can undo these people, if we can put these people on their backs and have them become homogenized places, atomized populations, strip out millennia of identity and leave these places atomized and with no sense of themselves and just at the behest of unelected bureaucrats here, there and everywhere, then we can do it anywhere.
It seems so evil. I mean, these unelected bureaucrats, these globalists who run the show, it seems so evil that it's almost hard to believe. Like when you and I talk about the globalists and this agenda, which you can see it clear as day, talk to English, talk to the English, ask them, is London the city of your youth? And they'll say it's unrecognizable. It's totally different.
London's fallen.
Yeah.
London's gone. And there are more places besides around the world that people who know their own equivalents better than I do, I'm sure would say the same and for the same reasons. And all the time, it's crucially necessary to always say that the people feeling it deeply, that their places, their hometowns, their cultural identities are being undone by the uncontrolled arrival of outsiders. Those feelings are justifiable and justified, but it's only as important. But it is as important to remember that it's being done. These things are not happening organically.
Okay.
The thousands of people are not coming across the English Channel and being intercepted by the RNLI and Border Patrol and bussed to hotels and that's not happening because it's natural. It's being done to Britain and it's being done to Europe. People are right to be angry about it's happening, and of course they look at the people that are coming towards them that they don't recognise, who have different understandings of how to be alive in the world, and they're angry and they're fearful and all of the rest of it, and that's justified. But it's happening because it's being done to undermine these places. And what you get back to ultimately, I say this again and again, it's because there's an anti-human agenda. All of the things that matter most to people, right? Family, the importance of family, the importance of community, the fundamental importance of feeling roots in a place and feeling a sense of belonging to a place and to some extent a sense of ownership of a place. These are fundamental human traits, and feeling bonded to the members of your community and feeling protective of the members of your community and knowing that all of that has roots in deep history going back hundreds of years, say in the US and in Canada, but here in Europe going back thousands of years of depth, of sense of belonging, sense of ownership, that all of that is being dissolved away for people. And there's an intent there to atomize, to deracinate, to cut away at the roots, to leave people feeling isolated, alone, bonded to nothing, coming from nothing. Because that's the playbook over and over again of those, the would-be totalitarians, the would-be globalists, the would-be dictators. They want people to feel that their family is not worth thinking about, that they don't respect what their parents stood for, they don't feel any sense of belonging to their culture, to their national identity, to the nation state. And in that atomized, deracinated state of mind, people are just tumbleweeds. They can be moved anywhere. If you don't belong somewhere, then arguably you belong anywhere, and you can be moved anywhere. And because you don't feel the loss, you don't feel the lack, and that's what's evil. I mean, I think you said evil. That is what is evil, because everything that it has been to be human and alive is the target of those who are anti-human, who are transhumanist, those who would see the human race upgraded in some way. And that's what that's what we are, and that's what we have to continue to stand in the face of, stand in defiance of. Because the people that you and I resonate with don't want it. They've not been asked if they want any of this. They weren't asked to vote on any of this. It's being imposed upon them. And it's been such an attritional war. We've been, you know him too, a good friend of mine now, Kavor Kalmasi, and I was talking to him, this Armenian, Syrian commentator, podcaster, and he was in communication with me over the last few weeks, and he said, remember, Neil, that our generation has been subject to the most brutal psyop, the most calculated, orchestrated, military-grade mental warfare of any generation in history. And it's been attritional, and it goes on day after day after day, year after year after year, and people are ground down by it, understandably. And you do feel that. That's part of where with the people that you and I and many others are resonating with. It's because these people are simultaneously exhausted, fatigued, anxious, but they know what's right. And when they hear it, they know it.
When you look at Scotland and you look at the family, I've had the incredible treat of meeting your beautiful children. Family is at the heart of any culture, any heritage, right? It's the most important thing. How have you seen Scotland try to break down the traditional family?
Oh my goodness. It's no secret that I suppose I put my head above the parapet the first time really in 2014 when there was a referendum on whether or not Scotland should remain part of the United Kingdom or should strike out on its own as an independent separate country. And I resisted getting involved for a long time, but quite close to the time of the referendum itself in 2014, I wrote a piece for one of the newspapers in which I said that I wanted to remain part of the United Kingdom, that I felt it was better for me and mine. And for a lot of people, certainly in the UK, I was associated with. I had made a television series called A History of Scotland. I had done a lot of stuff that had a Scottish backdrop, and a lot of people had made assumptions about the likelihood of my being someone who was pro-independence, which I wasn't. But it was. I can say it now. I wasn't really inclined to put it so bluntly at the time. But really, while the idea of independence was a more nuanced thing for me, I felt that the Scottish National Party, the political movement that was pushing it, were a bunch of crooks. I didn't trust them as far as I could throw them. And so it wouldn't have mattered what ideology they were pushing. They could have been offering free puppies and gold bars, but coming from them, I'd have thought, not from them. I don't want anything. I'd cross the street to get away from these people, this political movement. So it wasn't, and so I opposed it. As it happened, the 2014 referendum returned a fairly strong majority in favour of remaining part of the United Kingdom, 45 to 55. And so that matter was really laid to rest for many people right there and then. But the Scottish National Party nonetheless remained in position as the majority in Scotland, and the First Minister Alex Salmond, and then Nicola Sturgeon. It's still an SNP First Minister John Swinney now. So they've never gone away, and they continued to push without being able to have independence. They continued to push other aspects of their ideology, which to me, the proof of what I had suspected all along, was made manifest as the years then unfolded from 2014 onward. And for example, there were various bits of egregious legislation that bunch tried to bring forward. Notoriously, one of them was what was called the Named Persons Bill, whereby each minor under 16, maybe under 18, I forget now, but every child in Scotland was going to have a named person, which, believe it or believe it not, would have been a state-approved outsider to the family. Could have been a teacher. It could have been some other figure in their lives with whom the child would have been encouraged to form a relationship, talking, exchanging confidences, and that the family, no child's family would have had the right to know the nature of those conversations. They wouldn't have been privy to any of it. It would all have been happening behind the parents, behind the families' backs. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court in Scotland before it was finally turned back. That bill was not able to be enacted, but it'll be sitting in a drawer somewhere. It'll be ready to, it's an oven ready thing, ready to go, as and when. And if that isn't indicative of a determination to shoehorn the state in the most sly, underhand way to get someone in there between the child and its family, and I don't know what is. I don't see how that determination to interfere with the family could have been made more blatant.
They've done it in California.
And it's any administration that sees that as the way to go, I don't want to hear any more about that administration. I don't care about their fiscal policy. I don't care about their economics. I don't care about anything. If that's their mindset, then I would run 100 miles. I'd run 1,000 miles to get away from an administration like that. But that has been the policy that the government, the administration. I don't like government. It's an administration that's supposed to administer the wishes of the electorate. I wish they would remember that, whoever they are. They don't govern, the people govern themselves. But they get themselves so sidetracked by their determination to get in amongst us. And it's a mindset. It comes from a mindset that I want driven out of society. Mm-hmm. I want these people driven to the edges and beyond, not to be at the centre, suggesting and writing policy. I don't want these people anywhere near it. But then we see it manifesting more recently in the censorship. Mm-hmm. The censorship is to me, it's not quite as insidious as the named persons bill, but it's insidious. This determination to make sure that it seems to me that we're being nudged in the direction of nothing less than compelled speech. It's not even going to stop at you can't say certain things. It feels that we're being nudged into a situation where you get handed a laminated card every morning, and these are the 10 things you have to say today. Not only are you limited to these things, but you have to say all of these things.
Right.
It's as if we're being put in a position where we all have to sort of stand in line and salute the leader and underline our support by saying certain things, never mind not saying certain things. I think it's worse than censorship. And of course, we see it everywhere. It's there, and it's been there. The attempts are being made or have been made in Australia. They've been made or they're being made in Canada. It's in the US. It's across Europe. There are various iterations of these determinations to control what people say, what people think. Look at these arrests in Germany. 170 people taken and on raids because they've spoken in some way about political figures that the state deems unacceptable, and these people are being, face jail terms up to 3 years for insulting politicians. If the people can't insult politicians, who the hell else is going to do the job?
Right. Comedians have made a long career of insulting politicians. It goes back to the, hundreds of years ago in the United States, in newspapers insulting politicians. That's what we do.
It's there. The idea, of the court jester,
right,
is there to prick the pomposity of the monarch. There's implicit in the presence of that character, so right, mythologized now, was that because it was knowing there was an understanding up to and including the monarch that they had to be seen to have their egos.
Right, humility, right? They could be humbled by
a court jester. It was only one
jester
that was allowed to do it, but they were there, and that was their job. Was to take the mickey out of the monarch, to remind the monarch and the people, this is just first among equals here. This is not God. God's God. This is a man or a woman. And we are entitled to remind ourselves of that reality at all times. We have to, at times, prick the pomposity of these people, because if we don't, they'll get above themselves.
I do see some glimmers of hope in certain governments and certain populations standing up to some of these insane laws. You see some governments saying enough is enough and sort of stepping in, or the population moves in certain ways. So I maintain that all politics are local, of course, and that's where we're going to see a change. Because if we look at it's too scary to me if we look at it globally and we see Scotland, we see Ireland, we see what's happening in England, we see what's happening in the United States, we see what's happening in Canada, New Zealand, Germany, Portugal. I mean, the list is endless at this point. It's too much. It's too scary to see it that way. But when you see little fractures, little cracks happening in certain local areas, I'm encouraged by that. So I guess I'll ask you this in terms of Scotland. Do the Scottish people, and I know you don't speak for the Scottish people, of course, but there's enough of them that love what you say and stand with you, and their voices have been squashed and they've been stepped on and they've had enough. Do the Scottish people want this? Do they want a removal of the family? Do they want their borders overrun with illegal immigrants? Do they want the Scottish way of life, sitting down and having a steak and ale pie and
no, they don't.
Gone, thrown out?
The challenge is that people have been this attritional war, which is calculated and coordinated, has given people so many things to think about. You know, we in this country we pay absurd amounts of money for energy. Yeah, you know, if you look at the graphs that compare us to other countries in Europe, what we are paying is orders of magnitude more. The cost of living crisis. We've got one politician after another at the moment talking about the need to bring back conscription. To send sons and daughters off to
fight Russia,
off to Ukraine. That you've got generations, 2 or 3 generations now, who've been brainwashed with the climate crisis hoax. So people are on edge. They've been put on edge and they're kept on edge. And it means that when it comes to addressing the big stuff, like defending freedom, a lot of people they're too preoccupied, justifiably, with just keeping their heads above water, just running as fast as they can to stand still economically, keep roofs over their families' heads, keep food on the table, and keep the authorities at bay as best they can. And they know, because they've been taught it subliminally, that if they put their heads up and cause trouble, what's barely doable now will be made impossible. People get debanked. People already, without the advent of CBDCs and programmable money, I mean, from time to time, we saw in Canada,
right,
the truckers' protest, people can be debanked. They've been shown that kind of thing can happen, that people will lose their jobs for saying the wrong thing. That there'll be a knock at the door and it'll be the police because they have expressed an opinion that runs counter to the official narrative. And so people they don't want what's being pushed at them, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult to get up on your hind legs and risk losing everything in return for saying what you know to be right. So no, in answer to your question, the Scots don't want it. And I don't think genuine, meaningful majorities anywhere want this. There is also the extent to which, because people are kept so busy and distracted by everything else, they don't even realise. I mean, Trudy, my wife and I, we check ourselves all the time. We say to each other, we've been paying attention to this stuff so in depth, with such intensity for years now. It's easy to forget that there are still many, many people out there who are largely oblivious to it, however exercised we are about it.
Right.
They don't, and I know that I spent the first 5 decades of my life oblivious. One of the analogies that I make about all of this stuff, it's a bit like when you can't swim, and you look around at all the people in swimming pools who are doing it, how are they, that's impossible. How are you doing that? And then the day comes, when you take your feet off the bottom of the pool and you swim, and you think, why wasn't I doing this all along?
Right.
What's wrong with you people?
Right.
Why can't you swim?
Why can't you swim now?
Instantly you think, why can't you swim? Look at me swimming. And you've got to allow for the non-swimmers, because remember, you were one. I know I was one for most of my life. I didn't see it. It's just that it's the threat. What is definitely is that over the last few years, the globalists, the cabal, the whatever, those ranged against us, although they are a minority, they think they see the finishing tape, and they have and to mix analogies. They've put their foot on the accelerator and they thought they were going to get there. I definitely believe that they thought with COVID, with the regulations, with the level of obedience and submission that they got out of that, they thought, right, we're going to nudge this over the line. We'll have them in the digital cage by 2021, 2022. And then, oh no, there was enough of a stubborn, critical thinking, loud-mouthed minority that said no. And that made all of the difference. And they're not over the line yet. And critically, they've entered this area where I genuinely believe that meaningfully too many people can see it. They're not going to get over the line. Not really. I think there's enough of it. It's never, I mean, majorities. I don't trust majorities anymore. I never really thought about it. But majorities are never right. They're just most people. And the significant steps that have been taken, the significant moves that have been made, have always and only been made by small, critically thinking minorities. Sometimes a single individual is the one that makes all of the difference. It's not the majority. The mob is always and only the tool of the state. It's deployed to trick the people into thinking that such and such is a popular movement.
Right.
And so, no, I mean, I've gone off on one there, but I know the people don't want it. It's just either if it was explained to them, they wouldn't want it. If they had the time in their busy and anxiety-riven lives, they would say that they didn't want it if they paid attention to it. And if it wasn't for the fact that people think, no, I'm just going to keep my head down because the last thing I need is to lose my pension.
Well, I've spoken to a couple of different folks across Scotland over the past week or so, and one woman stands out to me. Her name was Norma, lovely lady, and she worked in an office, and she said, I've got to be honest with you, what's been happening, she said, a lot of people have been moving out of the cities. They've been moving out of Edinburgh. They've been moving out of London. They're moving out to the country because what they see happening to their country is, and she said, I'm sorry to go off on politics. She said, I don't really follow politics too much. She said, but I'm just being honest. And if she only knew what I did for a living. So I said, that's fine. You can talk. You can tell me all about this. And so she explained, she said, what they've done in our country in Scotland is horrible because now instead of retiring at 60 or so and getting a pension, now they've pushed our age up to 67. And she said, so people are leaving the cities and moving out to the country because the cities are being overrun. She said, I don't even go to Edinburgh anymore because it's just a trash heap. It's unrecognizable.
You hear that all the time. And you can see it. You can see it in the fabric in Glasgow, in Edinburgh. I definitely see it. I haven't been in London for a little while now, but there was a period there where I was in it, at least once a week. And you see it. I'd been coming and going from London for, my entire adult life. And what I've seen happen to it in the last decade is harrowing.
She told me her niece had a one-bedroom flat, I think, in Edinburgh. And because of the immigration, she says she's been on a waiting list to get an increased size in her flat. And instead of her getting it, the immigrants have received 3-bedroom flats with a garden out back, taken care of by the government. And her daughter, who's from Scotland, or her niece from Scotland, has been pushed to the back. So are you hearing that?
And this, absolutely.
Scottish pushed to the side?
This is being done. This is being done across the board. Yes, it's happening in Scotland, but it's happening everywhere. And it's part of, I would say, it's my opinion, I would say it's an orchestrated move to make the people angry. There's nothing guaranteed to infuriate people. Because,
to what end? So that there's a revolution in Scotland?
Because people turn against people. People turn against their neighbours. Now, in the instances that you're talking about there, and things that are happening, and the dreadful, dreadful shaming story of the rape gangs and all of the rest of it, there are all sorts of reasons why people are absolutely right to be furious about what has happened. But you have to see that it's a project, that this is the controlled demolition of Britain. And Scotland, yes, but Wales, Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, the British, Europe, it's a controlled demolition of these places. Because you mentioned, the centrality of the family and the traditional family and the extended family. That's anathema to globalists.
Would you say Scotland is being destroyed on purpose?
The West is being destroyed on purpose. It's being taken apart. And people are justifiably furious about the symptoms, but the malady is the globalist project, which seeks to isolate, atomize, to do away with the nation state, to take away borders, to lose national identities, and to force people into that. And what's happening is that people are being infuriated. It's the shaken ant jar, to quote that, what's become now a cliche. And people are fighting people, and it's that age old technique that's there, where people are where the objective of globalism was a place without borders, populated by atomized individuals with no sense of family and no sense of history, who would be fearful and frightened and turning and offering increased dependency to the state. But people would not have accepted digital IDs, programmable money, central bank digital currencies, round-the-clock surveillance, cameras here, there and everywhere, all these controls on our lives. Offered it, the people would not have taken it. So what is done is so people are made terrified and anxious. Society is dissolved, taken down around them in a controlled demolition. And then the state, then the globalist project is able to say, we've got solutions for all of that. You're worried about immigration? You're worried about not having somewhere to live? You're worried about the cost of living? We can fix all of that. We can give you a home. You won't own it. You'll never own it. You'll rent it from us. We can give you tokens. They'll be redeemable. They'll have a shelf life on them. You'll have to use them on certain things and use them by a certain date. Mm-hmm. And people who've lost everything or fear the loss of everything will say, right, well, okay, if that's what it's got to be, give me that. So people are herded into the solution that was made of and ready long before the problem was whipped up by those same globalists. I mean, it's a playbook.
When you look at young people in Scotland, I think about it in America. You hear the stories how, oh, my mom, if you're a young person, just graduated college. Oh, my father provided this house for my mom and my father on one salary. My mom stayed home and worked. We were able to take 1 or 2 vacations per year to travel, to take a road trip or a flight to Florida or something like that. And young people in America are rightfully scared that that they'll have to have 2 salaries at least, mm-hmm. and probably not be able to afford a home, not be able to live the way their parents lived. What is that like in Scotland?
Well, I would say it's broadly the same. I'm sure that there'll be nuances and some of the details will be different, and we'll be further towards something unfortunate. We'll be further towards that than people in the US or people elsewhere. But everyone's moving at different speeds and passing different milestones. But we're all going down the spokes of the same wheel, and we'll all end up in the same hub eventually. And yes, we're looking at generations coming through now that for the first time have no realistic hope of doing as well, far less better than their parents. I don't think even life expectancy
has dropped.
Is not there anymore. There's a poll or a survey that I saw some years ago now, I suppose maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, suggested that life expectancy in the East End of Glasgow was 55. 55, which was lower than life expectancy in certain African countries, and that's not to say anything pejorative about Africa. I mean, I'm talking about poor African countries, not
with not even clean water.
And so not only are people not going to be able to maintain the lifestyles and aspirations of their parents, they're going backwards. Education's going backwards. I'm pretty sure that the level of education that I was offered, that was made available to me through the state system, was better than what's available now. And I think that probably my parents got a better education as well, got a more rounded education than I got. I think I was further into this sort of brainwashing. We don't that kind of Henry Ford attitude about we don't need critical thinking people. We just need factory fodder. People who press buttons and serve machines. And I think I was possibly more affected by that kind of thinking. And my children were exposed to more of that than I was. So we're going backwards, which is quite extraordinary. I find it so ironic or paradoxical that at the time when we're invited to think we're so smart, everyone's got a smartphone in their pocket. You've got the wisdom of the ages. people don't know anything. Science, there's no denying it, has given us remarkable things. It's made life easier, let's say, to summarize it. It's made life easier than ever before, than could even have been dreamed of 50 or 100 years ago. Advances in medicine, although I think that's past a tipping point as well. I don't think we're going to live as long. So I think a lot of these things were, with the salad days are over, the golden era is behind us and we're on the downslope. But nonetheless, science has given a great deal. But ironically, it's made most of us stupid. Most of us can't do anything. We can't do anything. We can't fix a lawnmower.
Right.
We can't. Most people don't know how to sew on a button, change a plug.
Don't know which way to hold a hammer.
If they've ever touched a hammer,
right.
Why would they?
Right. And they want it that way, I think.
And so we've been made. It's painful to say it, but we've been made a stupid population
on purpose.
On purpose, because we're dependent. We're dependent, and so all that smart is there, but it's not in any of our heads. And the skills are not in any of our hands.
But something they can't take away from us is the primal, right? The primal nature.
It's not. You see, maybe this had to happen.
Yeah.
I think there are. That thing about the somebody fights for it, then the next generation sits on their backsides and watches it doing, and then then the third generation throws it away.
Yeah.
I think that is true. And I think that we had reached a point, and you could say, God, I wish I hadn't been the one to live through this point. But it's like that thing that Gandalf says to Frodo in the Mines of Moria. When Frodo says, "I wish it hadn't come down to me," and and Gandalf reassures him and said, "Well, nobody, you don't get to choose your time. You just get to choose what you do with your time." And I think we've enough generations, sadly, have had the opportunity to take it all for granted and to think that convenience is natural and that the way things have been is just the way things are in the world. When the truth is that the possibility of the lives that have been lived in our part of the world, in the West, for a vanishingly brief period of time in the scheme of things, is so unlikely. And we've simply forgotten that. And inevitably, I suppose, there comes a time when people have to be reminded of it, and they are being reminded of it. You hear more and more people talking about how they want to learn how to do things. They want to have their land, they want to have a bit of land, they want to grow their own food, they want to be self-sufficient, they want to get off of the grid. Because what is being stimulated there is what it is to be human and alive. And for the longest time, I don't think we've been as alive as we used to be. I don't mean just our generation, I mean our species has not been as alive, literally, as we used to be. And this is an opportunity now. We're being shown, and people are beginning to realise. And it will be a long road up. It will be a long uphill push. But it was perhaps a necessary stage. We've been beguiled and misled and misdirected and miseducated into a state of dependency and submission. And now is the time to get over that. And I have absolute faith in the human species. There will always be, you see it now, there are people who are pushing back against it and laying the foundations for something better. It's important to not be, we're sitting here being, bleaker than bleak, which is part of the medicine. But there are plenty of ways in which we can see all of this as an opportunity to relearn.
Well, we need to understand the disease, right, in order to treat it. So we have to understand the disease in order to pull it out of the body. I just think, do you sense that Scotland needs another sort of William Wallace moment, right? Sort of you think about the English invaders, right? You have this invasion into your country. Will it take a revolution, a rising up in this country to say enough is enough?
Who was it that said quite recently, I used to be afraid of revolution, and now I'm afraid that we won't have one. It was
wise words.
Wise words. I don't believe there's ever been a revolution. I think what happens is palace coups, boardroom takeovers, a disenchanted or disenfranchised part of the elite overthrows those that are in power, and then power having been reassigned, there's a period where the mob and propaganda are used to re-engineer the situation as though people wanted this. I think that's true of what happened with the French Revolution. It's true of what happened with the Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks came in and slaughtered 60 million Russians.
Right.
Christians in large part. The Bolsheviks hated the Russians.
Right.
But they reverse engineered this myth of a popular uprising to throw off the Tsar. I don't believe it wasn't the case. And so, and moving on from that, I don't think violent upheaval serves the people. It never has. Not to say it wouldn't, but I think what's needed is non-compliance. It's simply people refusing at whatever cost, and there is a cost to not complying, but toughing that out. If everyone stood up and said no for a day, Britain would turn through 180 degrees. We would instantly disempower the globalist, the totalitarian movement. A day, maybe take a week. But if in that hypothetical, if there was non-compliance for a very brief period of time, where enough people said enough,
right?
No, that's no. When it comes to issues like conscription, or when it comes to further tax hikes, a national strike, non-compliance, I think is not just all that's required. I think it might be the best option. It's just to stop going along with it. It's very difficult to not be nice. People think that, don't make a fuss, just get on with it, don't make trouble. That's seen as a virtue, and it's actually a terrible vice in moments of need. The last thing you need in a time of need are nice people. You need objectionable, awkward bastards.
Pricks, yeah.
That go, that's it. That is it. This far and no more. That's what you need, not nice.
I'm reminded of the people that confront these environmental roadblocks, where these environmentalists take over streets. And for a while it was fine, then I guess I just won't go to work today because some environmentalists took over the highway. And then you started to see, no. There's enough people are just pulling these people out of the way. I'm done with this.
I don't know. Maybe you and I we probably are put in a very privileged position, on opposite sides of the Atlantic, because people are encouraged to come to us and tell us what they think, and to share their own perspective, and maybe that's not the experience that most people have in the midst of their. Our busy lives are made of that. Our busy lives are made of being in touch with people who've got something to say about what's going on. But my experience, just in this, Stirling it's technically a city, but it's really just a town. It's 60,000 people or something, and I meet nothing but decent, straight-talking people that know that. I've never in all my years been approached by anybody that says that the climate crisis is real. Everybody knows.
Right, everyone knows it's a hoax.
It's bollocks, to use a Scottish word.
And yet your government is pushing. I see signs all over Scotland about how do this for the environment.
Do you want a CBDC? Do you want a digital ID? Anybody that wants any of that, and people know.
Wait a minute, Neil. You don't want the government telling you how much meat you can eat?
Yeah, surprisingly, no.
That's shocking.
And people, there's nothing wrong with people. People, as I've said, we have been miseducated, myself included. We don't know what democracy means. We've forgotten the Constitution. America makes a much bigger deal of its Constitution. We've forgotten our Constitution, but we damn well have one, and it's a lot older. But it is the foundation, the same foundations upon which the U.S. Constitution is built. And people have forgotten. They've been scared away from faith. They've been made embarrassed. Kids think that you have to leave home You know, you have to leave the house of mum and dad and go away and live in a flat somewhere. People have been scared away from family. They've been scared away from extended family. They've been miseducated about the fundamentals of democracy. They don't know anything about what money even is. And that's not their fault. That's on account of policy decisions that were taken by these same people that are working towards this, creating this submissive, dependent population. But at heart, the people are the same, and properly educated, and encouraged to be free, and encouraged to have the confidence to take responsibility for themselves. The people are still there. Because those are the people that I meet all the time. Irregular working guys that come up to me. I mean, I'm not approached by, thank God, by academics and scientists
right.
at all. My 99% of my day-to-day encounters are with regular working people, and they know what's right. There's nothing wrong with them. They just are so distracted, so misdirected, or so preoccupied with the necessities of just trying to keep the wheels on the wagon and keep moving forward at all, that they can't give of their time to this.
Right. You and I are blessed in that we can spend kind of a few hours.
That's what we do.
Soaking this in, reading policy papers and white papers and government bills and all of that garbage. And they're just trying to put food on the table. Oh. And I said this to a friend recently, I have enormous empathy for those people. They get a few minutes of news at the day in between trying to shuttling the kids off to work, and they put on the BBC or something like that, and they get a few minutes of their news, and they hear a certain subset of the truth, and they don't get to swim in it like we do. So it sounds like, even though as bleak as we've been, it sounds like you're pretty hopeful for Scotland.
Yes, because...
And the West.
Because, however how much people believe this or not, it comes from all the things I'm talking about. My wife, she's never blinked since this started to happen. She didn't miss a step.
When what started to happen?
The whole, when I
Censorship,
I put my head up about 2014 and the referendum about independence. And then when the whole thing happened around, I started speaking again, really around things like the Black Lives Matter thing, when statues were getting torn down and there was all of that nonsense going on. And I spoke about thinking that was a bad idea that ends up in a bad place. And then COVID came swiftly on the back of that. And I've been speaking out ever since about everything else, about Gaza, about Ukraine, about the climate, about all of it. And Trudy's been absolutely with me on all of that. And she is a more naturally, determinedly positive person than I am, by inclination. And so I have learned from her the necessity to force yourself to be optimistic, because I'm not optimistic. It's not in my nature.
Yeah.
But I'm with someone who is. And what I've learned from her is that you can make yourself do it. It's a bit like that thing about, they say that if you smile, you do actually end up feeling better.
Right.
If you smile for long enough, it actually improves your mood.
Releases endorphins,
The mechanics of it actually make it happen. And I know that because I see people talking about, I've never been a church-going religious person, and I have no truck whatever with organised religion at all. Not any of them. I think they're all corruptions of simple messages that are just co-opted and hijacked by the imperium, as another means of control. But the way that people talk to me about faith and family and fundamentals, and these are all things that are worth fighting for. And those that have been obfuscated and pushed to the edges and people have been quiet about them, they're worth shouting about and putting back at the centre of people's lives. And it's in that way that I am positive, because I think it comes down for me to the natural law, which is to say that I believe that the universe wants the best for us, as individuals and collectively. And I believe that when we come to moments of decision, well, all the time really, but moments where you've got to make a decision to go one way or the other, career, life, whatever choices, I think the universe holds its breath, hoping that you do the right thing. And that because I believe that the universe is positive, or else there'd be nothing here, there'd be less than nothing. What the anti-humans and the rest of them are about is against the natural law. It's a subversion, an inversion, a perversion of the natural law. And the natural law is like a beach ball held under the surface of a swimming pool. It takes energy to keep it down, but that energy will run out, and then it will get back to where it ought to be. And what we're seeing around us at the moment, in sharp detail, coming for a long time, but it's coming sharply into focus now, is an anti-human inversion of the natural law. It's against people. It doesn't have people at the centre of it. It wants to push people out, and that will fail.
Okay.
And the natural law will reassert itself. It will. And some of us will be here to see it.
So at the end of the day, you're actually a pretty positive person.
Well, just because I refuse to give in. I refuse to give in.
Yeah.
But what's the alternative?
Right.
What's the alternative? I'm not going to change. I have crossed the Rubicon. There's no way back to me to my old life. Mandelay's gone. He can never go back.
Right.
Rebecca. Maybe not.
One of my favorite. Yes.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. That's an Alfred Hitchcock reference. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all almost because I'm not a naturally optimistic person. I know. I have told myself. Mm-hmm. And I can be as the Scots are notoriously dark. It's never hard to tell the difference between a Scotsman with a grudge and a ray of sunshine, as they say. And the Celt, they're dark. We're dark people. In colouring and in and in nature, it's there.
Yeah.
It's there in a lot of it. It's there in a lot of the mythology. But it's because we're like that we recognise the light when we see it.
What's next for Scotland?
Well, I think there's trouble ahead. I think you're very much a financial, and you've got a better tuned sense of what's going on I believe that something is about to pop with fiat currency, with all of it, with the derivatives, with the debt bubble. I think all of that has been kicked down the road as far as it can go, and I think something's going to happen, and I think it will be shattering when it comes.
But don't worry, they'll move you to a central bank digital currency. It'll be backed by whatever. Right. It won't be real money. They'll give you your stipend. That'll give you your universal basic income. They'll give you your carbon footprint allowance to drive your car.
But on that, with your acuity and your contacts, as well as what you have amassed in terms of understanding of all of this yourself, am I right? I think everyone says follow the money. Mm-hmm. And I think so much of what's happening at the moment is to distract people while the banks try and get something else organised.
Well, they're accumulating as much gold as they can right now, and silver. That's happening at all of the central banks. And now you're seeing it at the large financial institutions like BlackRock and Vanguard. So don't listen to what they're saying. Watch what they're doing, which is accumulating gold, accumulating silver, because they know something big is coming, and there will be a reckoning that's coming, and I'm very troubled by it. And I think you bringing up CBDCs, though, central bank digital currencies, that's where we're heading. We're heading to this centralized banking system. It's already happened through most of the European Union, where you're not allowed to transact in cash beyond a certain degree. So in Spain, for instance, I think it's even 500 euros or 300 euros, don't quote me on it, but it's very little. You're not allowed to spend more than that. Otherwise, you're considered to be on the gray market, aka a terrorist, because those are the only people that would use cash, or terrorists apparently. So you are being moved to an all digital system that's tracked, monitored, controlled, and then they will control all of that. So I think they're going to try to really we might go back to a season of them trying to take away our precious mineral. They'll try to take away our the gold. They'll try to take away silver. They'll try to take away those things. So that's why I'm a big believer in tangible assets, real estate, gold, and silver. And I think there's a reckoning coming, and I'm really worried about what this next stage looks like. There's no way that the United States can sustain itself at this level with this amount of spending. It's impossible. So they will devalue the currency.
But when you say that, they somehow do. I mean, I've been listening to people saying that the dollar's going to fall over tomorrow for about 20 years.
Yeah.
And it doesn't. You almost wonder, can they just quantitative ease their way? Can they just debt their way out of this forever? Is that just some sort of perpetual motion machine?
I've talked to people way smarter than me on this. And for instance, Congressman Ron Paul, others who have been really haters of the Federal Reserve for so many years, and they say there's no way, it's going to happen. The US dollar will collapse. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So will it be 10 years? Probably not. Will it be 2 years? Maybe. Will it be tomorrow? Probably not. But there's enough countries now ditching the United States dollar as a reserve currency. So you have certain dominoes that are falling. Its world status as a reserve currency is already falling. It was at 70%. Now it's dropped precipitously, down huge amounts of percentage points. So that's going to continue to fall. It's not going to go back up, the world's, unless they pull something, some sort of a rabbit out of a hat with some sort of a stable coin structure. And that's where people who are way smarter in cryptocurrency than I am on this point to the salvation for the US dollar around stable coins, having stable coins backed by the US dollar. So we're not using petrodollars anymore. We're using crypto stable coins that are backed by the US dollar, a one-for-one backing, and therefore
nothing backed by nothing.
It's nothing. The United States dollar is worthless. It's only backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury, which is massively in debt. It's also backed by U.S. weapons and guns, and our, strategic importance of guarding the Straits of Hormuz against attacks from pirates. And we can't secure that anymore. It used to be that you use our U.S. dollar to transact your oil transactions, the petrodollar, and we will support you with our United States Navy. That has gone out. That ship has sailed, so to speak. So the U.S. dollar is not backed by anything. It's not backed by gold. It's not backed by silver. What is it backed by? It's backed by, I don't know. It's backed by nothing. It's backed by air, by all accounts. So there's a reckoning coming. They can continue to print this fake money. They'll devalue the U.S. currency. They'll debase the currency at the Federal Reserve level. That's their only salvation right now, is to debase the currency. We'll see higher inflation. And it'll crush the middle class. It'll crush poor Americans the most, because now all of the cost of everything they have to buy to put food on their table, their dollar is worthless, essentially. The elites will be fine. The globalists will be fine. But it'll be the poor and middle class who will be crushed by this. The same thing is happening with the euro. So all of these fiat currencies, they've all collapsed. You know this as a historian. Every fiat currency in world history has collapsed.
790, I think it is.
Is that many?
Have come and gone.
All of them. So what makes anyone think the U.S. dollar will be the one that will be here in perpetuity? It's not going to happen. So there is a realignment happening, and I'm deeply troubled.
You ask me, what? And do you have, and if so, what do you base it on?
Well, I think family. I really think at the end of the day, to see your children, to take care of your children, to raise them in an environment where you're putting them first and making sure that your family, then you can replicate that. I've got 3 children. Okay, now can we replicate that? So you've got a great family, and then you have and you spread it that way. Mm-hmm. Because these guys have done such an incredible job of taking away the family and crushing us in those ways that I'm hopeful in that way. And so I think if I navel gaze too much, I get distraught. But I think just spending time with the family, at the end of the day. Yeah. So, but you're hopeful at the end of the day. I mean, that's.
Well, after me, you've got kids.
Yeah.
You've got kids. You can't that's like taking your hands off the wheel and
Yeah.
closing your eyes when you're driving a car. You're here like
Yeah.
you've got to remain in control of it. Otherwise, other people than yourself will get hurt.
So final question, I guess, would be about regrets. We talked at the beginning, you've been censored from all of these different platforms. You've community groups, government groups, even charities, which I was struck by. You're involved in charities, and even you get pushed out of a charity. Like that's.
I was a patron of a charity called Combat Stress, which supports people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And I was, believe it or believe it not, I was a patron of the Association of Lighthouse Keepers. What can you possibly do to offend the Association of Lighthouse Keepers? I have asked myself now. And both of those decided to step away from me. And likewise, I was president of the National Trust for Scotland and that kind of thing, but I'm no longer deemed appropriate to be that kind of person. Trudy and I look at one another and just routinely, but continually ask ourselves, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Asking some questions about what's going on
With COVID or vaccine or anything.
or any other. But anyway, I've interrupted your. You said a final question.
No, I just wanted to ask you, do you have any regrets about it? I mean, with all,
No, because I feel as if I've learned more about what's going on in the last 5 years than in the previous 5 decades. And I was thrown back to begin with, sit still on family, and my family were 100%. Not the least vibration, solid all the way through. I lost everyone. I don't know really, with a couple of honourable exceptions. I don't know anyone anymore that I used to know. All people I knew from university and work, they're not connected. But I've become connected to a whole different group of people who are so interesting. People who've given me perspectives and shared points of view with me that I would never have encountered. People from different walks of life, people from different countries. So I've been enriched by that and in so many other ways besides. And also, my number one reason why I don't have any regrets is because my kids saw me being challenged. That I could have backed down,
right,
and I didn't. And I'm glad my kids saw that, and that means the world to me. We said the kids as well at the height of the jabs. The 2 elder ones were old enough to make their own decisions and could have got the jabs. And their mum and I said to them, "Just give it 6 months and see what you think in 6 months. There's no rush. Just wait." And now they say, "Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God we didn't do that." And if for nothing else, I'm thankful every day that is what happened. So no, absolutely, given a button that I could press and do it, go away.
Neil Oliver, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
It is.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks for the pint.